Hi, welcome to Lit Up Winter Session 2. If you have already completed Winter Session 1, that's great. You're all set to go into this next stage. If you haven't yet, you still can, but I just want you to know it's not necessary. As we move through Lit Up, the classes for the seasons will only be available during certain time periods, because as we move through the seasons, the work we need to do changes. So instead of trying to play catch up, we'll reconnect with the concepts we did in the last 2 weeks again next year. And this will happen repeatedly throughout the year. So the really important thing to do is to connect with where we are now. So in the last session, we were focusing on the idea of releasing, of finally shedding the last of our story. Now, this is really a thing that we do in the fall. Letting go is a fall season. That's when the trees drop their leaves and when the plants begin to their inward cycle. And so during that time, we are celebrating there's harvest, but there's also a releasing happening. We're letting go. We are consuming the bounty of last year and dropping fruit from the trees so that we can plant seeds. And so as we go into winter, it's more about the seed than it is about the process of letting go. So if you're stuck in that process, or if you haven't done it yet, I suggest just going ahead and going forward with this lesson. If you really feel the need to go back and do session 1, it is still available, but I again suggest you get caught up with where we are as soon as possible and try to stay connected to that, because as we move through the season, to try and go back and capture everything, this is a habit of our species that nature doesn't do. If we work with the seasons, we won't need to go back and catch up on anything. So today what we are going to talk about is where we are after we've let go of our story. So this is where we really get into deep healing. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the betwixt and between, and this idea of going into the place of silence, into the place of non-movement, into the place of quiet and unknown, into the place of not knowing, into the darkness. We're really preparing ourselves to go into that place. And so we're going to do another meditation in this session, and I'm going to do actually very little lesson. Most of this session will be the meditation. In Winter Session 3, we'll start to dig into the concept of polarity. But in this session, what we want to focus on are two things. One is that deepening into the unknown, deepening into the space of no spaces, as it's often called. And we're going to talk a little bit about oneness. So I'm going to address the concept of oneness a little bit. And then there will be in the homework assignments kind of that combination of moving between that dark space that feels empty and alone, that can sometimes feel isolating, but realizing how in that space we can become more deeply connected than we are at any other time. So we'll dig into that this session, and then there will be questions. You'll get some contemplative questions this week at the end of the session, and then more will be added next week. And so for future reference, I do want to remind you, new lessons will show up on the 5th and the 20th of each month. And as we progress through the season, lessons will disappear. They'll be back again next year. And this is really about taking advantage of being aligned with the season while we're in the season, rather than feeling like we somehow have this opportunity to miss things, or that we need to make sure we do everything that we've ever had on our to-do list. And so what we're going to do now is I want to talk a little bit about oneness. And then we're going to return to where we left off in the last meditation. We'll do a meditation There will be some questions for contemplation after we're done with the meditation. And then we will next week have additional questions, because I am going to have you stay in that meditative space to really sink into it over the next 2 weeks. There will be a new session available on the 20th. So what I want to talk about first of all is this concept of what it means to go into the deeper levels of our being. Now, a lot of us tend to think that the deeper we go into ourselves, the more isolated we are. And the exact opposite of that is true. So what I found is I spent a great deal of my life reaching out, trying to connect with people, trying to understand them, trying to read them. I was an empath at the time. I have since healed my empathic states, and so I'm less of an empath now. Which what that means is I'm not in other people's feelings. I'm not experiencing their feelings with them. What I'm doing is I'm in my own space. I'm grounded in myself, in my own being. And as I've done this, what I've discovered is the deeper I go into myself, the more connected I am to all beings. It's oftentimes similar to the question I get about self-love. People say, well, if you love yourself too much, don't you get arrogant? And the opposite is true. If you connect with true self-love, if you truly love yourself, you will love others more. If you truly respect yourself, you will respect others more. If you truly experience the deeper and deeper levels of your own being, you will connect with others at deeper and deeper levels. This is how it works. The more we connect with our internal knowing, the more we connect with our internal self, the more we are connected to the world around us. And it doesn't necessarily feel that way. So what I'm going to do is the lesson plan for this week is going to be just daily contemplations that I want you to sit in. And there will be still the daily prompt contemplation, but within the lesson itself, I want you to spend a day, or sometimes it might be 2 days. And I want you to spend the time actually doing the work. So more than making this session about listening to me, about me explaining, again, which is getting away from the silence. If I'm here speaking with you on the subject, I'm not in the silence, and you're not in the silence. I want you to really experience the silence. So what I'm going to do is give you silent meditation practices. So we'll have a meditation here that begins the process. And then what I'm going to do is, as the leading questions go, it's going to be about connecting with that process. There may or may not be another meditation. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to record it on video or if it's going to be part of the questions for contemplation. But you'll find out as you work through them. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this meditation about going into that place of silence, of stillness. And we're going to really connect with that space the way we have been in the questions that we had set up. And then once we do that, we're going to practice connecting with others around us through going deeper into ourselves. It sounds like a really complex process, but it can be easy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and move into the meditation. We'll move into the deepening process from there. I hope you enjoyed the journey. Dark matter meditation. I want you to fully connect with where you are right now in this moment. If you did the session 1 meditation practice, I want you to connect with that wall, that crumbled wall. If you didn't do the practice, I want you to just connect with your moment. I want everyone to connect with this moment. And I want you to feel yourself either stepping over the rubble of that wall or taking a step into the unknown, into the next stage of your life, even though you can't fully comprehend what it will be. In the way we step into our day every day, we have imagined we know what will be next. We have the idea of knowing, but we don't truly know what we'll encounter in a day. So in that same way, realizing that same moment that we don't know what will happen, and that right now we are all stepping in to this winter time, to this dark. So as you step forward into your new life, notice what's around you in this moment. Stand in the potential of what might be, and then allow the light around you to dim. So whether you're experiencing your meditation visually, or maybe audibly, or maybe it's just a feeling you have, allow any ideas of what is next to dim. Allow thoughts of the future to fade. Allow hopes and ideas, imaginings to dissipate. This doesn't mean we're giving up on the potential of our life. It just means we're letting go of knowing what it is for this moment, for this meditation. So as this moment passes, as each moment passes, allow the space around you to become emptiness, to become nothingness. Allow that nothingness to become deeper and deeper until it is no longer just nothingness. Let it be thick with texture, warm and comforting. If this is difficult at first, just allow yourself to take deep breaths. And with each thought that comes up, with each idea, with each hope, let it pass. And sink into the place of not thinking. Sink into understanding it is not important to understand. Sink into knowing that nothing can harm you here. Nothing can limit you here. This is sacred space, the center of your own being. Let it be your comfort. Let it be the womb of your growth. You have no responsibility here. In this moment, at this time, there is nothing you need to do. It is important to learn how to be in the space where you are not seeing or hearing or doing. Become familiar with the moments before creation, the swelling of the tide, the betwixt and the between, the breath between breaths. The place where we are held in our own sacredness. The place where we can sit in the silence of no story. As you begin the process of becoming familiar with this inner space of your being, allow yourself to be right at the center of it. Imagine yourself in the center of your own universe. As thoughts come, notice them. Watch them like you would watch light reflecting off a rippled pond. Notice them and then allow them to pass. If thoughts catch you and you follow them, don't judge yourself, just let it go and return to the silence. Don't ponder the nature or judge anything you notice about your internal being. Just observe yourself here. So don't worry about thinking or doing. Just observe the thoughts. Sit as the silent witness. And remember, all of your thoughts are just reflections of your past. Every idea you have right now comes from who you were. The brain likes to think. And in the beginning, it will try to think what it has always thought. Now is the time to see where you have been and then let it go. If it is meant to be in your life, it will return. But be willing to allow the next thought, the new thought, the thing you have not thought before. And as you become comfortable with observing these thoughts, I want you to allow a thought to rise. And as it does, imagine that a door exists between you and that thought. Imagine there is an open door and you are on one side of it and the thought is on the other. And then I want you to close that door and imagine the door and the room beyond it disappear. In this meditation, I want you to continue sitting, and as each new thought comes up, observe the thought. Then allow yourself to see it on the other side of a door. And when you can clearly envision that, I want you to close the door with the thought on the other side. The goal of the meditation for the next 2 weeks is twofold. The first is to remove your thoughts by closing doors on them. The second part is to sit in silence after the door is closed. Notice how long you sit before the next thought comes. And as you sit in the silence, come to know the space. Come to know the nothingness where you are. And I want you to write about that. So as you're doing journaling practices or mythology practices or answering the questions, don't write the thoughts you've had. Don't write your opinion of the thoughts you've had. Don't write the process of closing the door. Write about the space, how it feels and how you feel in it after closing the door. As we continue forward throughout the next 2 weeks until January 20th, I would like it if you could do this meditation of just closing doors. You don't need to do the whole dark matter meditation, but do this closing door meditation for 20 minutes and spend as much time as you can describing what the space is between your thoughts. So as you close the door on one thought before another arises, describe how that space feels and describe how you feel in it. I'm going to follow up this meditation with some questions for contemplation, but I advise that you don't go into those questions until you begin to have an idea of what that silent space is for you, how you experience. All the questions that you're going to have for exercise, for homework during this session are going to do with how you feel in that space. So I'm going to recommend that you become familiar with that space. There are questions for contemplation every day that will facilitate this. Your first set of questions, the questions that go with the video, will be about how well do you know this space between spaces, this space between thoughts, this emptiness in your own being. And then once you're complete with that, once you feel clear on that, once you understand that, this should be your first week of homework. You can answer the questions for contemplation located underneath the video. And once you've completed that, another set of questions will arrive that will open up where you can now connect to what it means to connect from this space. But first, before you can know what it means to connect from this space, you need to know this space. So take your time, connect with it, and then I'd say maybe by the 15th of January, that might be a good time to start moving forward with the second week of this session plan for winter session 2. So we're going to start with that meditation. I'm going to recommend it every day, and then the questions will be there when you are ready to answer them. I truly hope you enjoy the journey.